Everybody comes to a conversation, to a relationship, to a business meeting with their own perspective on things, on life, on fear, on risk, on so many different topics that make it sometimes really hard to connect with other people. And sometimes it feels like, and I'm sure you felt this way, I felt this way many times, but like you're so excited about whatever it is, whether it's you tried a new restaurant and they had this amazing food, or you have this really great idea to solve a problem at work, or you're super excited about a new show, or you're so excited to talk about this thing you figured out about yourself when doing your work. And you go to somebody, and after 13 seconds in the conversation, or maybe only one, all of that excitement, those hopes and dreams are in rubble. They are broken. You have all these seeds of doubt. You feel like an imposter. You're like, oh, that won't work. And the person on the other side of the conversation probably didn't mean to burst your bubble or to crush your dreams, but they're coming to it from their own lens. And I do believe inherently everybody has the want to help. They want to make sure that they keep you safe from whatever trouble they see on the horizon. But sometimes that really clouds everything we're trying to do. When I was a kid, my mom used to tell me this quote, don't cast your pearls amongst swine. And when I was young, I didn't really get it. And then when I got older, I kind of like the concept of like, don't tell everybody what you're doing because, they're not good or they're going to give you something bad. And what I know now is all of that is the lens of fear, right? And their own things that have happened in their own life that make them pensive. And if we don't have those things in our makeup, in our being, in our existence, um, it makes it really difficult for us to take that and not feel like it's some type of personal attack. What I've learned in this journey is that when I am really excited about something, I don't tell anybody. And it's again, it's not that I don't want to share what's going on in my life, but I need to kind of figure things out in my own head. Is this a fleeting moment of excitement, or am I really, this is something I really want to do? The more we get to know each other, the more you will hear about my life and my past and my waypoints. And one of those things is a failed startup. It was 2019, and I had an idea and a business partner, and we thought we could solve the problems of the staffing world. I come up with this idea that it's really important to make sure that we keep people safe when they go to work every day, and I really thought this was going to be the thing that was going to change not only my world, but the world in general. And I took a bunch of cash and quit my very fancy job, a job that I loved very much. It was doing very well at, to follow this dream. And it was the single most isolating thing I've ever done. People wanted to support me, but they didn't know how. When you leave a job that's a very good job and it pays well and is stable, everyone sees that risk of starting your own company and taking your life savings as a risk they probably wouldn't take. In the process, I learned that I actually have a much higher risk tolerance than most people, but it's because I inherently think that things are going to work out. I am on the side of the fence that says I can figure anything out. Everything is figure outable. I can do anything, and it's my faith in myself, my self confidence in what I can do and my skills and abilities that I do take a lot more risk probably than the average Joe. But when my company failed, and there's a lot of reasons why it failed, if we take like one singular point, I probably didn't have enough cash. And also, we launched the week that the world shut down for COVID-19. Starting a business that's going to disrupt several industries in the throes of a global pandemic is not on anyone's bingo card. It's not something anyone's plans for when they're writing their business plan or comes up with their idea. And for a really long time, I held that failure as a deep, deep wound. I felt less than. I didn't want to tell people. I was really sad. I mourned it as though I lost the lost something really important to me. And through that mourning process and through that being very ashamed, there was this really bright moment that changed the way I think about failure and changed the way I think about hopes and dreams and getting up and dusting myself off and trying again. It was after my startup had failed, and I was actually at a trade show working as the COO for a company. And it was my first time going to be on stage, my first time keynote speaking, my first time in this new arena of clean tech. And we didn't have a lot of money, and the trade show booth was like amongst the most beautiful, like multi-million dollar trade show booths. And I came up with this idea of putting together boxes because the company solved a paper problem. Through violations for vehicles, and we filled our trade show booth with empty boxes to show just how much paper a fleet would save by moving to this product. And I'm absolutely an introvert. Like I'm deeply involved and deeply care about human connection. And I am, an extrovert at work because I have to be, but I'm an introvert. And when I'm on all day long and I'm at a trade show and there was all these kind of nerves about my first time taking stage as a keynote speaker, my battery was unbelievably low. I was super lucky that because we were a small company, there wasn't anybody who'd go to the show with me. So one of my best friends and one of my best friend's moms came and worked the booth with me. And they are both chatty Cathys, like going into the world, talking to all the people, the opposite of me. And it was time for lunch. And we sat at this table, and there was 3 chairs on one side and 1 chair on the other side. And the hall was full of people. If you've ever been to a trade show or an event, there's just people everywhere. And I was so excited because I just wanted to eat my lunch. They could talk to each other, and I needed to recharge. I wanted to eat my lunch and be quiet and prepare for the rest of the day. I needed that moment. But the universe had a different plan. And this man comes up and he says, Is this seat taken? And I thought to myself, yes, please do not sit there. I cannot talk to anybody, and especially a stranger. And my 2 counterparts were like, sure, it's not taken. Have a seat. And this man sat down, and he's become one of the very most important people in my life. His name is Corey with a C. And when he sat down, he asked, what we did and what we were doing there. And I kind of led with, I had a failed startup. And to that point, when I would talk about it, there was so much shame, honestly, and so much guilt and so much remorse, that it wasn't like this bright, happy topic. It wasn't something I was proud of. And he also was an entrepreneur and had his own startup, and had left his startup to pursue other things. And we had the most beautiful, robust conversation where, looking back on it now, it was just him and I sitting at the table. And yes, there were other people around in a crowded room, that the only conversation that was happening was him and I. And the exchange was about how hard it is to be an entrepreneur, and how hard it is to have a startup, and how it's such an isolating thing that you do. And that singular conversation changed his perception on what it means to be a founder, and his perception on a failed startup, and his perception on what that means to keep going and to share it as a badge of honor, changed the entire way I encase this memory. And he really encouraged me to not think of it as a failure, but a learning experience, and to chalk one under my belt and keep going. And that moment, that genuine human connection, that time that we spent together, and he ate a moldy salad, and we ate some DoorDash clam chowder, I think it was. That time we got to know each other went from being complete and total strangers to one of the most important people in my life, in a spark, a person who creates a sense of community and understanding about something that most of the people in my life don't understand. Being a founder, having a startup, doing these things that are very risky and very hard, and oftentimes they seem impossible. But having someone in my circle who understands not only me and how I tick, but this really hard thing that I did, and the time I failed, and now I'm doing it again. And so that shift in my mindset, it really helped me understand why community is so important. And it's not that you don't want to cast your pearls among swine. And I do keep some things close as I'm figuring them out. But it's about finding the right people to share the right things with, that really understand what you're going through. What I didn't know at the time is 9 out of 10 startups fail. 9 out of 10 startups fail. I learned so much. That failure was not at all a failure. Yes, the business doesn't exist today. It's still a great idea, and maybe one day I'll bring it to life again. But that time was not a failure. I learned an incredible amount of things about how to run a business, how to fundraise, what not to do, how to launch a product, who your ideal customer is, all of those things. I never once got tired when I was starting my first startup. I didn't. I worked on it endlessly. The number of hours I could sit at a computer and create things out of thin air is unbelievable because I felt so passionately about it. I was in my zone of genius. But what I learned most is that I, in fact, was not alone. I just had not found other people who had had a similar experience who I could relate to. And so as I continue into this journey, and we have Art of Heart and Lead with Heart, and people come on every single Thursday on the podcast Art of Heart, and they share their waypoints, the good, the hard, and the aha moments. We have stories from all different walks of life, and we have people who share these very deeply personal things so that someone on the other side will hear that and will find a sense of community even if they never meet that person. Being able to follow your hopes and dreams is not about having it all figured out. It's about knowing who you are, knowing what you want to do, and take a leap of faith. And that leap of faith, if you can find just one other person, if you can find your Corey with a C, if you can find one other person who not only believes in you, but is able to support you and not put their own fears on you, that is the best pearl I could ever imagine. That is the thing that stabilizes when you feel uncertain. That's the person who says, you're smart and you're talented and you too can figure this out and you're not alone. And I don't talk to Corey with a C every day, but he's always there. Whether I need encouragement or to laugh or to eat tacos on a windy beach, I have found a community in someone who has done the work, someone who has walked the same path, someone who had a completely different experience, but still understands deeply what I want to do, the hard days, the good days. And that community is worth everything. So, as you think about how you're showing up today, and if you share with people something you're really excited about, whether it's fast shoes or a dream of becoming a yoga instructor on a tropical island, or if you just want to come up with this new thing at your job that is going to make everybody's life easier, but you're concerned about it, bake it a little through and then find someone in your community who's had a similar experience or who can be a cheerleader for you, even when you can't cheerlead for yourself. We're not meant to walk this path alone. And in fact, as an introvert, I would say that I'm just as comfortable in my own little bubble as anything. But the truth is, the support that we get from people who've had like experience is one of the greatest gifts we'll ever find. So if you don't have a Corey with a C, go find one. He may show up at a random trade show in Austin, Texas. It may be somebody that you knew from a past life and maybe you haven't spoke to in a long time, or maybe it's someone who's near and dear to your heart. If you're on the receiving end of someone who's showing up and trying to tell you their hopes and dreams, think about how to support them in a way that doesn't reflect your own fear and your own risk assessment to the situation. It's okay if they fail. The thing I want to leave you with is, but what if it worked? What if you took that dream and you put action behind it and it came true? What if it works? What if it works?